What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to see you here. It's Saturday, January 4th. I hope you guys are having a good weekend so far. I decided to go ahead and do the first of probably 3 episodes on what's been dubbed by Fitz News as the Rose Petal murder here in Greenville, South Carolina. It is a crazy case. There are so many unanswered questions, lots of twists and turns, and I will be attending this trial, which is set to begin January 13th here in Greenville. There is a chance this is going to be live streamed by Law and Crime Network, so I will be running that stream live on my YouTube channel daily as I sit in court. I have to give a huge thank you to Jen Wood and Fitz News for sharing documents, answering any questions I have on the case. I'm going to link their page dedicated to this case in the description. They have a lot of filings and they go way more in depth than I plan to on these episodes. I just want to get the backstory out there so we're ready for trial, but they have a lot of information over there. Highly recommend you check it out. And to put it mildly, this is a very complicated case. There are twists and turns, and the victim, 41-year-old Christina Parcell, was held as someone you would want as a friend. Just glowing memories from people who knew her. But as the investigation progressed, there were some very, very dirty secrets of Christina's life that came to light. And we're going to get to that later. The murder happened on October 13th, 2021, just after 10 a.m. at her sister's house. That's where Christina was living. She was found by her fiancé, 68-year-old Bradley Post, shortly after 11 a.m. She had been stabbed 31 times in the head and neck area, and Greenville County Sheriff Hobart Lewis said at the time, it was a very brutal crime scene for sure. Can I just say, Hobart Lewis is an amazing sheriff here in Greenville. Fitz News, who has been the source for this case, reported that there were drag marks, her body was posed, and there were rose petals scattered around her body, hence the name the Rose Petal murder. Let's establish who's who, because it's really important to figure out the players in this case before we dive deep into the investigation. The victim, 41-year-old Christina Parcell. She was a vet tech at an animal hospital here in Greenville for just over 3 years. And she was the mother to one child, a daughter, who was 10 years old at the time her mother was murdered. Christina had been married twice, with the last marriage ending in 2009. She lived in that marital home up until 2020. Those 2 divorces seemed to be amicable, and there were no signs of any drama with the ending of those marriages as far as we know. After her shocking murder, those who knew her spoke about the woman they knew or the woman they thought they knew. The owner of the animal hospital where she worked told local station WSPA she did just a really good job of exhibiting compassion and empathy, and she was always very even-tempered, which is very helpful in this field. And over time, she made a lot of friends. We're kind of a tight-knit group, and I think everybody is really feeling the loss right now. Not only was Christina a great vet tech, she was a mom. She had a fiancé and a sister here in town. When you work in a small office, your family life sort of filters into the workplace in a lot of respects, and we traveled some difficult journeys with her over the last 3 years. And I'd just like people to know she was an amazing person. She loved her daughter. She was extremely close to her sister. And she's not just another nameless, faceless victim. Speaking of the murder, he said everybody was just in shock at first. We couldn't believe it. We didn't know details, obviously, when we first heard. We just got the call from an attorney that she was gone. I guess we all just kind of walked around like zombies that first day. It felt like a bad dream. Over the next day or so, we learned details of the crime, and it's just so heartbreaking to think about somebody you care about having to go through something like that. A patron of the animal hospital posted on social media the day after the murder saying, I honestly sat here these last 14 hours trying to figure out how to wrap my head around this. Christina was not only one of the most epic vet techs to our dogs, but she was a friend with a personality the size of a high rise and always trying to make everyone else feel better. I can't tell you how many times she walked me to my car after an appointment and had me crying from laughing so hard. The dogs loved her, and she did an incredible job with them. When you're at the clinic as much as we are, you form friendships with some of the people that work on your dogs. It's hard not to. Christina was one of them. She always had an ear and always tried to make you smile in the worst of situations. We are absolutely devastated by this senseless crime, as there is a beautiful little girl whose life has been forever changed. She ended the post by asking for good vibes and prayers for Christina's family and said, "Christina, we will have that bottle of wine when we see each other again." Now, at the time of her murder, Christina was dating Bradley Post, who was 68 years old. He was the one who found her body. The two met at a cigar bar owned by her father, and at this point, she was eyeball deep in a years-long family court drama with her ex, John Melo, regarding their minor child. Her fiancé, Bradley Post, funded the attorney fees for the custody battle between Christina and Melo. The two of them did get a marriage license, but they never acted on it. She did sign a power of attorney giving Post the authority to do business in her name, but we do not know the specifics of that. In the midst of the back and forth in family court, Christina decided to go to school to become a veterinarian technician. And she was encouraged by her fiancé, Bradley Post, to do so, and he paid her tuition. Let's get into what we know about her relationship with John Melo, the father of her child, and also the custody battle between the two. A little bit about Melo. He is a music producer, a lyricist, a songwriter, and a vocalist. His LinkedIn profile says he's worked with big artists like Jimmy Cliff, Neil Young, Christine McVie of Fleetwood Mac, Jimmy Page, the Rolling Stones, and Elton John. Originally, he's from the West Coast, but he moved to Greenville in 2004. At that point, he was married to another woman, and they had 2 teenage kids together. He and his wife were divorced in August of 2015. But in 2016, Melo filed an incident report with the sheriff's office accusing Christina of domestic violence. At that time, the report listed the two of them having a daughter who was 4 years old. I mean, you can do the math, but that would have him and Christina having their child before his divorce was final from his previous wife. In fact, that child was born in 2012. Fast forward to October 2015, Melo asked the court to give him sole custody of their child and asked the court to require Christina to pay him child support. This would be one of many reports filed with the police and in family court, which kicked off a furious back and forth through the family court system, and it all revolved around their daughter, and that lasted up until Christina's murder. I want to make a note here. John Melo and Bradley Post, her ex and her fiance, have not been arrested and charged with anything having to do with her murder. But let's take a look back at what unfolded in family court. I got a lot of this information from a filing on October 18th, 2024, where Melo is suing the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, the Solicitor's Office, as well as the guardian ad litem assigned to their case. He requested a jury trial. So let's go through that filing to see what unfolded over the years. So Melo filed for sole custody in October of 2015, and that request was granted on January 4th, 2016. Later in 2016, Christina filed for visitation, and that was granted on August 10th, 2016. However, Melo remained the sole custodian of the child. In 2017, Melo filed to revoke Christina's visitation due to suspicions of sexual inappropriateness and or abuse while the child was in Christina's custody and her then boyfriend, Bradley Post. Between 2017 and 2019, Melo continued to try to prevent their daughter from having visitations with Christina again, citing sexual inappropriateness and abuse. He contacted law enforcement and the Department of Social Services regarding his fears for his daughter's safety, but the filing says he was unsuccessful in getting any help on the matter. On January 28, 2019, Melo and Christina agreed on her visitation schedule, and again, Melo was granted full and exclusive custody of their daughter. The final agreement was filed in family court on February 4th, 2019, but Melo still suspected their daughter was in danger when she was visiting her mother. On or about October 20th of 2020, Melo, who is a citizen of Italy, moved back to Italy with their daughter due to continued concerns of sexual abuse. And at the time of the move, Melo still had full and exclusive custody of their child. October 30th, 2020, Christina filed a motion to show cause alleging Melo was not following the visitation order that went into effect on February 4th, 2019. A hearing on that was held December 16th, 2020. Melo was not in attendance. A guardian ad litem was appointed, and the court found Melo was in contempt of the visitation order. And on or about April 14th, 2021, their daughter was ordered to be returned to the States by the Italian Central Authority pending resolution of this family court matter. This order was eventually overturned, by the way. On April 19th, 2021, Melo was indicted for custodial interference. The filing said the grand jury was not informed that Melo was the sole custodian of the child. But on July 21st of 2021, an arrest warrant was sought by the Greenville County Sheriff's Office for Melo's arrest. The filing by his attorney says the guardian ad litem was consistently reaching out to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, requesting his arrest despite knowing, or should have known, that Melo's actions didn't violate any custody orders since he was the sole custodian. Well, that arrest warrant was issued, but the filing by his attorney says the authorities were aware Melo had sole custody, but did not make the judge aware of that. At this point, Melo is still in Italy. In fact, he stayed in Italy until after Christina's murder. But fast forward to 8 days after Christina's murder, on October 21st, 2021, John Melo was arrested for custodial interference due to taking their daughter to Italy. He was released on bond. Now, in April of last year, that case went to trial here in Greenville. His and Christina's daughter actually spoke on the stand and was asked what happened in late September of 2020. And she said, "We moved to Italy. It was the best thing that's ever happened to me." After the prosecution rested, the defense asked for a directed verdict, meaning they said the state did not adequately present the case. And guess what? The judge agreed, and those charges were dropped. The judge determined Christina was not a legal custodian of her daughter at the time Melo took her to Italy. When the judge rendered his decision, Melo was said to have gasped and put his head in his hands. The decision was based around the law saying that he would have been guilty if the parent took the child from a legal custodial parent, which Christina was not. Since Melo was the sole custodian of their child, the judge said those charges did not apply to Melo. So before we get into this next part, it's really important to throw in the shocker. In this case, Bradley Post, Christina's fiancé, was arrested on October 19th, 2021, but not for anything pertaining to Christina's murder. During the course of the murder investigation, they found that Post was producing and or distributing child sex abuse material involving minor children. And it wasn't only Post who has been implicated in this. In a court filing, it says that Christina Parcell not only produced, directed, and participated in child sex abuse material, she also distributed it. There are currently 2 civil lawsuits surrounding these allegations, and Christina's estate is named. We know of 2 victims, and one of those was Christina's own daughter. Now, Post is currently incarcerated at the Greenville County Detention Center awaiting trial on 9 separate charges. He's charged with 5 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor in the first degree, 1 count of sexual exploitation of a minor in the third degree, 1 count of third-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor, and 1 count of buggery. I'm not going to get too deep into the buggery stuff, but there have been allegations of bestiality as well with this case. Now, as far as the charges for her fiancé, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson's office is handling these charges. If that name sounds familiar, he was very much involved in the Alec Murdaugh trial. As far as the murder goes, Post did have an alibi for the day of the murder and was seen elsewhere on camera at the time she was killed. But Melo reached out to Fitz News once they started covering the story and said that the daughter he shared with Christina was in some of the photos and videos found during the course of the murder investigation, and said his leaving with their child to Italy was to protect her from her mother and her boyfriend who were producing child abuse materials. Melo told Fitz News during one custody exchange, Christina abused him and marks on his person verified his story. The police were called and Christina denied any altercations. Her story was that Melo took the child out of the car and stood between Christina and the door. But she changed her story, saying she got the child out of the car. The deputy said her story was inconsistent, and a warrant was issued for Christina's arrest, and charges were filed. There's nothing in court records about this incident. It may have been resolved, and it could be if she had no prior charges, they did some kind of a pretrial intervention, or it just wasn't prosecuted. We don't know for sure. In one filing, December 29th, 2017, Melo made a filing and claims he had a note inside the door of his car that said, "Drop the case or die." It was a ransom-style note with letters cut out. He said the last time he exchanged custody of their child, Christina said her boyfriend, Bradley Post, said he would rather take care of Melo than pay her attorney fees. Melo said he took that remark as a threat. And Melo told the officer he thought Post was a loan shark and really didn't want a confrontation with him. That note was sent to forensics, but nothing of evidentiary value was found. Melo had just overall been described as being obsessed with Christina, and the harassing and stalking against her was said to be relentless. Moving on to the third big party in this case. Now we have Zachary David Hughes, 31 years old. He was arrested on November 3rd, 2021, and charged with Christina's murder, as well as use of a deadly weapon during the commission of a violent crime. There is no known personal connection between Zach and the victim, but there is a connection between Zach and the father of Christina's child, Mr. Melo. And we're going to get to that more in the next episode, but let's learn about Zachary Hughes, who is probably the most unassuming person in this whole case as far as motive of why he would want to kill somebody he really didn't know. What do we know about Zachary Hughes? At the time of the murder, he was 29 years old. He was born in Morro Bay, California. He has a younger brother who lives here in South Carolina, and his parents have been married for 46 years. And in 2005, his parents adopted 5 Russian children. They were all siblings. The document said that this had a profound impact on Zach's life. Zach's parents moved the family from California to Virginia to a small farm, and between their savings and the farm, the parents stayed home to raise their 7 children, but it wasn't enough. Zach's parents needed him to be another caregiver for the kids in the family. Now, unbeknownst to any of the Hughes family members, most or all of the children they had adopted from Russia had significant emotional, psychological, and or physical adversity, which was due to maltreatment that they had received in Russia. The children had difficulty adapting to America in general and family life in particular. This placed tremendous stress on each family member and especially Zach. So Zach turned to music as a refuge to all this stress. His parents bought him a piano at a yard sale when he was around 4 or 5, and his parents saw he had a talent for music. But it wasn't until his adopted siblings came to live with the family that Zach really devoted the entirety of himself to playing piano. He won a ton of competitions, citing one in 2011, which earned him a spot to have a solo with the South Carolina Philharmonic Orchestra. He was admitted to Juilliard on scholarship, and he was one of 12 students from around the world who was invited to play at the Tokyo International Music Festival. He was the only one in the United States to be invited. He got his bachelor's degree in music. In 2018, Zach joined the Marine Corps while he was pursuing a master's in piano performance at the University of Tennessee. Initially, Zach applied as an enlisted soldier, but the recruiter saw Zach was special and told Zach he should apply for officer candidate school. Now, the Marine Corps Personnel Board convenes 3 times a year to evaluate the suitability of candidates for the officer candidate school, and determined Zach was. He was the only candidate the board in Tennessee accepted during that cycle. But 3 weeks into officer candidate school, he suffered stress fractures in both legs and had to withdraw. At the time of his injury, his class was 400 students, and his superiors told him he was in the top 3% of his class, and they wanted him to come back once he healed up. In 2019, a friend called Zach to come here to South Carolina. They wanted him to play one of the highest quality pianos in the world that a local Unitarian church had been gifted, and they wanted him for the inaugural performance inside the church. His friend knew the woman who was looking for a worthy pianist for that first performance. By the way, this piano worth a lot of money. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars. After that performance, Zach and the woman, as well as her family, developed a deep friendship. And Zach told the family his dream was to perform all 32 of Beethoven's sonatas by memory during the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth. That woman and the Unitarian Church supported the idea, so Zach decided not to go back to the Marines. He also bonded with a couple from the church and moved in with them for about 2 years. In fact, Zach would play on their front lawn for neighbors to just come, pull up a chair, and listen. Zach and the church reached an agreement. The church would take up donations at the performances and split 50-50 with Zach so that he could support himself while working on this project. But Zach was said to be the one who insisted to split the profits 50-50 with the church. Now, it would take Zach approximately 2 years to complete the project. Beethoven's sonatas are considered to be some of the most difficult music pieces ever composed for piano, and it has approximately 600 pages of sheet music that he was going to memorize. He planned to perform all 32 in 13 different performances, and he got 3 of those in, but then 2020 came and COVID hit. And so large groups couldn't gather, but Zach bought an electronic keyboard and played on street corners in downtown Greenville, which I saw him many times when we were just getting out of the house during lockdown. I'm trying to find the videos I have on one of my old phones. If I do, I'll upload them to YouTube. Also, between December 2020 and September 2021, he partnered with Greenville's Signal Museum and performed and recorded all 32 sonatas. And Zach said the human element of the music was the gift to our community. He gave piano lessons out of the couple's home that he was living with and got a job teaching piano online through the Bronx Conservatory, which teaches piano to underprivileged children from the Bronx. He also participated in free outdoor concerts here in Greenville. Now, I have a friend who worked with Zach. I'm not sure where, I didn't press, but she said he was a very pleasant person and makes her wonder what snapped. I also have a contact that worked at the detention center where he's been held since his arrest, who said, I worked at the detention center, and out of all the inmates, He is the most reasonable one. Doesn't bother anyone, sticks to himself. Seems like a genuine person, but I guess you just never know these days. Well, what would the connection be between Melo and Zach Hughes? Well, remember at the beginning of this episode, we talked about how Melo was a music producer that had worked with, according to his LinkedIn page, very big names, and Zachary Hughes really being a prodigy on the piano. On the next episode, we're going to dive into what we've learned about their connection. I'm ready to get this one started here in Greenville and hopefully learn a lot more, because even when we finish this series, you're going to see there's a lot of unanswered questions that hopefully some at least might be answered during the course of this trial beginning January 13th, right here, 10 minutes from my house. All right, that's it. I'll be back with episode 2 soon. Hope you have a good rest of your evening. We will see you soon.